welcome to the Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. The Tough Girl podcast is sponsorship and ad-free, and that's thanks to the monthly financial support of patrons. To find out more about supporting your favourite podcast and becoming a patron, please check out Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast, and help me to increase the amount of female role models in the media. All patrons will get their name on a dedicated patrons page on the Tough Girl website, and all female patrons $5 and above are invited to join the closed Facebook group, the Tough Girl Tribe. Today, I'm absolutely delighted that we're going to be speaking to ultra endurance cyclist Jasmijn Muller. Jasmine's going to start off by sharing more about who she is.
I'm a Dutch woman stuck in London. I grew up in the countryside and I find myself in the city now. My main thing is cycling. Sadly, I never took that up in the Netherlands, and only once I was living here. It's been quite a slippery slope. I've gone from, we'll talk about it in detail, but I like really, really long cycling challenges.
I'm actually really surprised that you didn't take up cycling in the Netherlands. I thought that would be sort of prime cycling opportunity over there.
It is, yeah, totally missed opportunity. But I don't know, my life would have looked very, very different if I had, and a lot of cool things that I have done in the past I would have missed out on. So, I guess it's good as it is.
So what was life like for you growing up in the Netherlands, and when did you move over to London?
I moved over to London in 2007, but it's been quite a longer journey. So I grew up in the middle of the Netherlands, between Arnhem and Utrecht. I grew up initially on a farm. We had, I had my own horse, and we had sheep and cats and dogs and chicken, and quite a country life. And by 6 years old, we moved to a normal house, and the farm was sold. And then as a child, cycling did feature in my life, but like any other Dutch kid, it's just to get to the shops, get to school. And I had very different hobbies that I engaged in. My main passion when I was younger was dancing, ballet. And I was sporty, but ballet was the main thing. And then when I was 18, although I was doing like the equivalent of A levels, and I could have gone to university, study any subject that I wanted to, there's only two things that I really was interested in, and that was either dance or sports. And I did an entry test for both, and then found myself in with the luxury problem of being accepted by both the dance academy and the sports academy. So I thought long and hard, and then in the end I did go with my passion at the time, which was dance, and it was contemporary dance that I was into most. But then you find out that when you do something as a hobby, it's all good fun, but once you got to do it full time, particularly when you're 18 and you're living on your own for the first time ever, suddenly it's all a bit different. And I lost my passion for dance. I didn't go to all the classes, and it's not a subject where you can just copy someone's notes, so you quickly fall behind. And the summer before I went to dance academy, my parents divorced as well, so I think I was affected by that too. So after a year of dance academy, I stopped, and I decided to travel. And what should have been a 5-month travel turned into a 5 years worth of traveling. Basically every year telling my dad, that study that I want to do, let's postpone it by another year. And I fell in love with my next passion, which was scuba diving, and worked as a professional scuba diving instructor in various places around the world. And after 5 years of that, it basically was a choice of, do I want to continue on with this life, which is wonderful, or do I still want to get a degree after all? And in the Netherlands, we have a really fortunate situation where the government used to give you 4 years worth of some grant funding, that about €400 a month that you could use towards the cost of your living. And the only condition of getting that as a gift was that you would get a degree within a 10-year period, although the funding was only for 4. And given I'd used 1 year for Jan's Academy, that meant that by the time I was 28, the 10 years was up. So I still had 3 years worth of funding, but at 25, I basically had to make a decision. It's now or never. So I decided to go back to the Netherlands and get a degree after all and make use of that generous funding that the Dutch government had. So that was the end of living a barefoot life in Southeast Asia. I'd been teaching diving in Thailand and Indonesia and the Philippines. And in the Netherlands, the diving isn't so great. It's a bit cold and a bit dark. So I was looking for a new passion, I guess, or a new outlet, which took a little while. And that didn't happen until I came to the UK. So I did a master's degree in the UK after my bachelor's in the Netherlands. And then after the master's, I did a PhD as well, although I didn't complete it. Mostly because during my PhD, I started rowing. And I became really good at rowing, but my PhD suffered a bit. And then when I started working, eventually, rowing is fun, but it's also something that is quite time consuming. So that's when cycling finally came about, end of 2010, initially as a way to get to work, a way to stay fit. And then the first sort of longer event I did was a charity event for cancer research that was organised by a client at work, which was 100 miles from Penrith from Penrith down to Warrington.
What did you go back to the Netherlands to study? What did you get your bachelor's in and then your master's in?
Tourism, yeah. Having worked in the tourism industry, I was really sure that was the sort of studies I wanted to do as well. So it was tourism management and consultancy that I studied, particularly around destination planning. And then I did a master's in tourism development. And my PhD was looking at the role of consultants in tourism development. And whilst doing that, actually, I realized that I don't want to be a researcher or an academic. I really want to work as a tourism consultant myself. And that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years now.
So it was the end of 2010 and there was a 100-mile cancer research race. Was that the moment that you sort of realized that, oh my God, this is cycling, this is what I want to be this is how I want to be spending my time?
Yes, totally. It was a very, very pivotal moment in several ways. The first thing is I did it on like a really old bike. I have a beautiful old vintage bike. It's a bike from 1982. It's an Allen. It's one of the first sort of mass-produced aluminium bikes that would have been top end of the range bike back then. And I was given it when I was 14 or 15 by my dad as a birthday present. And I didn't quite realize the value of it or how special it was. And I just used it in summer to do the occasional ride with friends or with my dad, but didn't consider myself to be a cyclist. I just had a bike that I used every now and then, but I still had that bike laying around after all those years. So I used it for the event, and it's got down tube shifters and beautiful lugs on it, but only about 7 gears or something. And we're going up Shap in the Lake District. It's quite a climb to do on that bike, but I managed, and I was surprised that without any training, 100 miles is a really, really long distance. And looking at all the other people had like modern bikes with 10 gears at least, and different shifting systems, and they weighed a lot less. And I was surprised that I was able to keep up. So I think that's the first time I discovered that I had some sort of endurance abilities. And then the second reason why it was really special, that event, was because the client who organized it, he had just recovered from cancer to the esophagus. And it used cycling as a way to regain fitness, and then organised this event as a way to raise funds for cancer research. And then 3 months later, he got cancer again in the brain that time, and by January he was gone. And that was like such a shocking experience to see one. He probably was the strongest in our group that day, and then just to realize that life can be changed any moment. So that the two things that happened for me through that ride is that I started cycling more and more and doing more and more long distance events, but also made the pledge that every couple of years at least I want to do something to raise funds for cancer research, because it's an illness that affects most of our lives.
Oh, I love that, and thank you for sharing. I'm so sorry to hear about the loss of your friend. It's just it just affects everybody, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
But an incredible pledge to make, doing an event every couple of years to raise funds for cancer research. And you also mentioned that you started to realise that you had this endurance ability. How did you start progressing that and go, so you did a 100-miler. What was next, or what were the races, like these different pivotal moments where you kept pushing your body further and further and further?
Well, after that charity ride, I did a couple of sportives to start with. It was a nice way at the time to get to know the UK. You just follow the arrows and you don't need to worry about getting lost. And I did ever longer sportives, I think the longest one in the UK you can do is like Flat Out in the Fens, which is about 160 miles or 160 kilometers. I think 160 miles, yeah. And that all went quite smoothly. And then I thought, okay, well, that's been fun, but always riding on my own is a bit boring. I think I want to join a cycling club. So I joined the Kingston Wheelers, my local club. And then the first ride I showed up, they shout out the different rides that they're going to do, different distances, different speeds. And I just thought I joined the longest one. Yeah, it was 90 miles or something. I was comfortable with the distance, but totally not comfortable with the speed. And I think in the first 15, 20 miles or so, I realized it had been like a big mistake. So I had to drop off and go join another group that did a shorter distance at a slower speed. But from there, I built it back up. And probably a year later, if I was going out with those same guys on long rides, by then I would still suffer in the first half, but towards the second half of those rides, it was the guys that were suffering, and it was me on the front pushing the pace. So, yeah, that's another moment that I realised that the endurance probably was just, I don't know, built in. I think I'm born with that somehow. And then once you train it, it really became a strength.
You set yourself a goal in 2013, Le Mans 24-hour velo. I hope I'm saying that right. Do you want to share what happened in that race?
Yeah, so the 24-hour race at Le Mans is a beautiful race. It's on the closed circuit. It's got a lot of history, of course, not necessarily for cycling racing, but certainly for car motor racing. And once a year, it's opened up to cyclists. And basically, when I discovered that I had some endurance abilities, I thought, okay, well, how far can you push it? And I came up with the idea, well, let's try the 24-hour. And it was around the time that my mum had just moved to France. She'd retired and was living in Brittany. So I thought, well, that's great. I can do the race and then go and chill out at my mum's. And I entered it as a solo racer, but you're allowed to have people in the pit garages that can help you by giving you food and drink. So it's my mum, her husband, my husband, who then was still my boyfriend, and my mum's dog. They were in the pit garages to cheer me, and I totally didn't know what to expect. And it went surprisingly well. I won the women's race 2 hours before time was up. The organizer came to me and said, well, if you want to, you can stop now, because the second woman, she can't catch you anymore. Even if she kept on riding, she can't equal the number of laps you've done. And then I made a big rookie mistake. I thought, okay, great. if I've won already, I'll sit down, have a drink. And then, of course, your legs totally seize up. And but by the rules of the event, you still have to do a final lap when your 24-hour time approaches, which hurts a lot. But I had a lot of fun, and then to my surprise, I think I was like top 10 of the men as well. And had I not sat down for 2 hours, I guess I could have done a bit more. But that's not really what it was about. It was just the experience to see if I could do it, which I could. And from that high, then certainly the next day it went into quite a low, because that was my first massive saddle sore issue. I've had a lot of issues since, but that's when it all started. So from winning the event and feeling on a high in the evening, in the morning I woke up and basically looked down, and it looked like I had a sex change. It's like third testicle or something, totally swollen. My mum just said, okay, well, have some ibuprofen or something to stop the swelling. But that didn't help. And then the scary thing was that I basically had an infection going, because the skin on my belly was turning blotchy as well. The skin on my upper legs was turning blotchy. It was like spreading a reaction. And then went to the doctor, who immediately sent me to the hospital. And then the hospital basically kept me there, and they operated on me that night. They said it was a Bartholin cyst that had been infected, but I know where that cyst is located, and it certainly was a little bit higher up. I don't think that was the right diagnosis, but it was a big abscess, effectively. And then from that operation, I think it took like 5 weeks or so to recover it and sit back on the saddle again. But because I hadn't learned my lesson and didn't really see the danger of the long distance events that I love doing, so I continued doing a lot more events after that.
I'm surprised that didn't put you off.
No, you would think so, but yeah.
Oh, it just sounds incredibly powerful, and we'll definitely talk about saddle sores a little bit later on. Amazing result. You won that race. You took a 2-hour break and you still won that race and came 10th overall. Absolutely incredible. Did you have a coach, or did you decide to take a coach on board? Did you just decide that you were going to do as many races as possible? Did you have a strategy? Was this just pure fun and enjoyment, or was there elements of wanting to not turn professional, but to really grow your career in that space?
Back then, I didn't have a coach. It was all about fun and experiencing different things. So throughout 2012 and 2013, I'd been doing a little bit of crit and road racing as well, and worked my way up from category 4 up to category 2. But I had realized that the only way that I could win road races was effectively by time trialing, by using my endurance skills rather than tactical insight or things like sprinting. I have no sprint whatsoever. I'm a little bit scared of riding in very big groups, mostly because my bike handling is not the best. Yeah, from the success in the longer events, I then just thought, okay, well, let's explore this more. I'm appeared to be good at this. I'm enjoying it. So let's see what we can make of this. And it's after Le Mans, so in 2014, then I started working with a coach. And the direction that I took was time trialing, with a focus on long distance time trialing. It still was just for fun, and it always will be. It still is nowadays. I'm definitely not a professional cyclist in any way. But with the help of a coach, I got the confidence to actually ride a time trial bike. I was quite scared of that in the beginning because the handling is all different. But then within that same year, I didn't just get the hang of how to ride the time trial bike. I also ended the year winning something that's called Best British All-Rounder in time trialing. means that you've got the fastest average speed over a 25-mile time trial, a 50-mile time trial, and a 100-mile time trial. The irony of that is for me at least, is mostly that I'm not even British, but I was best British all-rounder that year. That was quite cool.
I'm on your website at the moment, and your results are insane for 2015. Just first woman, first woman, first woman, sixth, first woman, first, third, second woman, first woman. And they're sort of almost like every week, the 17th of May, the 24th of May, the 31st of May, 14th of June, 21st of June.
Yeah.
An intense schedule. Yeah, how is your body coping with this demanding schedule and the pace that you're going at, and also, how's your body coping?
You can't is the answer. You can do that for a short term. If you do shorter races, then it is possible. But over time, I started doing longer and longer races. And there's only so many 12-hour or 24-hour races that you can do in the year. Your body definitely does need the recovery. And beyond that, I think the thing that I found the hardest was actually travel. We tend to think of cycling as such a wonderful and healthy activity and being so good for the environment and all that. But actually in time trialing, particularly if you want to do the fast courses, you often have to travel far. So, you might find yourself sitting in the car for like 4 or 5 hours to drive to a piece of dual carriageway in Wales that is particularly fast at silly o'clock in the morning. You do your race there and then you drive all the way back again. And doing that on your own, my husband doesn't cycle. He's got a life of his own. At some point when he realised that I had a bit of a gift for this, he said, "Okay, I'll support you 3 times a year. You've got 3 cards, use them wisely. The rest of the time you're on your own," which is fair enough. So I would ask him sometimes to come along for the longer races, but the shorter ones, I was always on my own and just getting quite tired from the travel and fitting that in with my job as a management consultant. It's if I work 40 hours a week, that's a short week. Generally, it's a lot more than that, and it does break you up over time. So you can do it for a while, but it's not sustainable.
I'd love to talk more about one of the biggest challenges that has been, I don't want to use the word obsession, but LEJOG, the Land's End to John O'Groats, the record attempt and going after it. When did you first decide that this was something that you wanted to do?
That was just after Le Mans. So at the end of 2013, I went to an event in Isleworth, which is close to where I live. And that's the hometown of Elaine Sheridan, who went for that record and took it back in the 50s. And she's in her 90s now, but when I saw her in 2013 and when she spoke about her heydays of not just Land's End John O'Groats, but any point-to-point record in the UK that you can think of, that she held it. She was the absolute queen of long-distance cycling back then. And the way she not just spoke about Land's End John O'Groats, but cycling in general, just with such passion and a great deal of wit as well. In every single way, I just thought, oh, this woman is so awesome. I want to be like her. I want to do what she did. But I wasn't sure whether I would ever be able to do so. But that, I think, was when I definitely got inspired and when the seed was planted. And then after 2015, when I'd won the national 12-hour championships, and then in 2017, I won the national 24-hour championships, time trialing, as well as the world ones. It seemed like a logical step. Where do you go after 12 and 24 hours? Well, you try to double it again. And Land's End John O'Groats, it's roughly 2 days. So it seems like a logical extension. Now, some of these wins that I just spoke about actually happened a little bit later than I had hoped to. So I decided to go for Land's End John O'Groats at the end of 2015 with the aim of doing it in 2017 and with the aim of having targeted the national 24-hour in 2016. But I got a deep vein thrombosis in 2016, DVT. So that didn't happen. I had to wait a year. And then in 2017, it seemed like, everything was in the right place. I had enough time to think about it, to prepare physically, mentally, logistically, financially, and felt ready to take that next step.
What happened over the next couple of years with LEJOG?
Yeah, me and LEJOG, we have quite a history. So after after I made the announcement in early 2016 that I was going to go for this in 2017, it was a very intense period of preparations, getting a team together, saving up the money, riding the whole length of the route twice on my own as a recce, basically just to see what I would get myself into, what the route would be like, what the traffic would be like, and importantly, because when people do Lanzarote roads for leisure, most of the time people pick more scenic routes that are a little bit safer. When you want to go for this record attempt, you've got no other choice but to go for the big A roads, and some of them are they are technically A roads, and you are technically allowed to ride on them, but they feel a bit like a motorway, depending on what time of day you get onto them. Now, when you do this during the record attempt, you have a follow car behind you, so you are sheltered to some extent. But during my recce's, I was on my own, and those were quite scary times, particularly the A30 in Cornwall and the A9 in Scotland. They're very scary roads to be on, and you wouldn't want to be on them if you didn't want to go for a record attempt. They're much nicer roads to take. So after two recce's, 18 months of saving up or so, in 2017 in September was the first time that I went for the record and felt ready. But one of the challenges that I've got in my life is that I can't quite predict my workflow. As a consultant, we work on project basis, and you never know how many projects you're going to win. You never know exactly when the deadlines are going to be, because deadlines move, and sometimes 5 deadlines all fall together, and you're basically just working through the night on quite a few occasions. And building up to that record attempt in 2017 wasn't ideal. I was fairly sleep deprived going into it, but otherwise, physically, I felt good. I managed to get the money together, managed to get an awesome team together, and then come September, one of the biggest challenges that you've got is that you have to pick the right day. So there's no point going if there's a headwind. No matter how strong you think you are, the existing record, it's a tough time to beat. And if you don't have at least a little bit of tailwind, you're just not going to make it. So you've got to watch the weather going into this challenge. So every day you're looking at the weather forecast. Is it good enough? Is it not? But you have to give 48 hours at least notice to the organisation that oversees the record attempt, so that they can have various people along the route to verify that you're doing it by the rules, and that it's not you sitting in the car and someone else pedaling the bike, for example. So early September, the weather didn't look fantastic, but it looked good enough, and we went for it. Actually, it went quite well. I was ahead of the record, the current record, for quite a while. I was feeling good, but then at one point, approaching Warrington, suddenly stopping at a traffic light, I thought I just wanted to stop for a toilet stop. But the moment I tried to signal to the team behind me that I might need the toilet, it basically came out at two ends. I was like puking all over the streets. We stopped. I had a paramedic on my team who gave me a couple of pills, and in the hope that it would settle. But then afterwards, every time I just kept on puking up, and realized that I just wasn't able to hold anything down, even with the medication. And then there's a very, very, very short window of opportunity with a record attempt like this, that you can pause, but you don't have much leeway. And beyond that, if you can't get any energy into yourself, then how are you going to get the energy to still cycle? At least for, I think that was about 360 miles in only, and the full distance is about 840 miles. So I wasn't even halfway yet, and I knew that the weather further up north would be colder, more rain, and I just didn't have the strength to do it. And then the sad thing is that it isn't just about whether you're able to complete a distance. You have to be able to complete the distance in the fastest time ever. And there was no opportunity for that anymore on that occasion. So that was end of record attempt number 1, which then made me wonder, why did the nutrition let me down so much? Did I accidentally pick up something on my bottle? Was it the mix of carbs that we used? What was it that caused it? But it seemed like it was something that could be addressed. And it also felt like, because of the progress that I had made, the 2 hours or so that I was up on the record by the time I had to break it off, still felt like it might be within my grasp to try again and see if I could break it again. And then in that second year, so in 2018, my relationship with the record attempt changed. Not sure if I'm explaining this very well, but sometimes when you set yourself a challenge, these things have a shelf life. There's a period within which you need to get it out of the system, within which you just want to be able to do it. And I think what started like, something that I really, really wanted, like a big dream, became more like a burden, like something that I felt like I had to do, that I owed it to people who had supported me, like, my support team, people who supported me financially, sponsors, various people. I felt like I couldn't let them down by not doing it anymore. But for 2 years, or actually more than 2 years, all I've been thinking of every single day was this record attempt. Everything I did in my training was geared towards it. Every event I did or didn't do was because of the record attempt. And life had become very, very, very narrow, which is not a way that I enjoy living. And I know some people are, enjoy being totally focused on one thing, but that's not me at all. I like a wide variety of experiences. We did manage to get the nutrition under control. We had a much better plan for 2018. That was an improvement. I also made an improvement in terms of the timing preparation. I said, okay, I hope to be able to do this in July. And you know what? I'm actually going to take total time off work, which I did, and I was physically as ready as possible, totally rested. But then, of course, you can't dictate the weather. And not sure if you remember, but, we had a very, very hot summer, and all sorts of records were broken in terms of temperatures. And it was absolutely impossible to go for the record attempt. It was just too hot. And there was very little wind, and what little wind there was in the wrong direction. So I had to postpone it until after the school holidays then, and then had one last go in September 2018. And what happened in the 2017 attempt was because of nutrition that let me down. The 2018 attempt, what directly made me fail on my record attempt was something that happened during the record attempt, which I'll describe in a bit of detail in a moment. But I actually think it failed before that. I think it was my mental state and my relationship with the record attempt that had changed. That really was the underlying cause. But what happened during the record attempt in 2018, I was riding along the A30, the big dual carriageway that feels like a motorway. And for one reason or another, on a fast descent, suddenly I got a speed wobble, which is something that I've never ever experienced in cycling before or after. In fact, it's basically not just where you get a little bit of crosswind on your wheel. I've had that many times before, but it's when you're going really, really fast downhill, and suddenly, because of the speed, your bike just starts to what's the word, to shake uncontrollably from side to side. And it didn't stop for like a minute or two. The bike was just going all over the place. And I was going downhill with incredible speed, and there's cars next to me and cars next to there. And I really thought I was going to die because I can't get this bike under control. I can't even brake. I'm going that fast. If I brake now, I'll fall off regardless. And all I could think of is, well, am I going to die in the ditch, or am I going to die in this lane and then be run over by my support car? Right? Just awful things going through my head. In the end, somehow the bike managed to chill out. I managed to chill out and nothing really happened. But the whole incident had shook me up quite a bit and got me thinking, like, okay, this was a steep, long descent. But when you get to Scotland, coming into Inverness, there's a very, very long descent there on the A9, much longer, much steeper. And by the time you get there, it'll be dark, it'll be more windy, there's rain forecast. And that was kind of playing on my mind. How was I ever going to be able to deal with that after this? On top of that, your whole judgment is affected because you basically haven't slept. And, the more tired you are, the more affected your emotions are and your judgment is. And whatever you were still having, iron nerves to start with, when you haven't slept after 40 hours or more, suddenly it starts to feel a lot more scary. So I kept going, but the intention with which changed. So what had started as something that was a dream and a desire became more and more afraid of what I was doing. Speed went down. I started asking my support crew, can I have a stop? Can I have a sleep? Which they gave me, and then I started again. Can I have a sleep? Can I have a stop? And we started to fall behind schedule, and there was just there was no way I was going to make it anymore. We still got to Scotland. I think we got somewhere around, I can't remember exactly, maybe an hour or two north of Perth. So quite a long way, but definitely in no way capable anymore of wanting to, of being able to break the record or wanting to break the record. So yeah, a very, very sad end, actually.
Emotionally, what was that like afterwards? Like after letting go of this dream, letting go of the record and giving up, not giving up, but you've invested 3 years of your life, the training, the focus, the money, the fundraising, the sponsorship, the support crew, the people around you. That must have been an incredibly tough time period in your life.
Yeah, it was. So at first you just talk about it kind of sober. You think, that's it. But then the next morning, when I was just alone with my husband, I realized that it wasn't just me who had invested, 2 or 3 years of my life into this. He had too. Okay, he's not a cyclist, and like I said, he only supports me on 3 occasions a year. But he'd been part of my support crew on both years. He'd seen me throughout the 3 years, of course, and he had invested a lot of emotional energy too. So we were both crying. It was me giving it up, but he was also losing something, and I think that was really quite beautiful for me to see that. He may hate my bikes and the oil all over the house, and he's like always complaining about things, but below it all, he wants me to do well, and he's invested a lot in this, and we came out of it stronger together. So that was a good thing. But letting go of a dream and not achieving something that you think is within your reach, it comes down to so much more than just whether you can, ride a certain distance within a certain time, and you must really, really, really want it and have the right kind of mindset. If you are really working on one thing for a number of years, though, the risk is that you start to confuse what, how shall I say it, what's you and what's the record attempt. So, of course, there's a lot more to me, what I do and in my life, but it had become a big part of my life, and failing at that felt like, you in a way you were a bit of a failure. So you have to be able to divvy those two things, and that took time.
Yeah. How do you feel about it now? Now that there's some distance, you've had some time away from it.
I feel good now. I went back to Cornwall this year in May with my mum for a walking break, and we walked along some of the coastal paths and stayed in a place not far from where I'd stayed for the start of the record attempt, and of course we drove along the A30 and everything again, and there was like nothing within me that felt like, oh, I wish I could have another go at this, or everything was about, this is good. Why would I want to do that again? There's this, there's really fun things that I'm doing now and that I'm really happy with. It felt peaceful now, but it did need that time.
Time is a great healer, and
absolutely.
And you wrote an incredibly beautiful blog post, which I'd encourage everyone to go and read, entitled "And in the End," which you shared on September 14th in 2018, which is where you share more about your thoughts and your process, and it is a phenomenal read, and what you've done as well is just going for it and being that focused and dedicated, and then dealing with the setbacks and dealing with the failure, and then adjusting and learning as a person. One of the things you mentioned at the beginning was that you had that experience with this saddle sore, which sounded horrendous, but you persevered, and that has plagued you throughout your cycling, and I think you've been through some really, really tough times. How is everything down there now? That sounds a bit dodgy. How are things going?
I'm actually able to sit on the saddle, do long distance challenges for the first time ever without any issues, and it's a total different experience. So, anyone who does long challenges, it does hurt. The pain kind of comes and goes, but I had come to accept. I thought it was normal that these issues that I've been having, not just in the saddle sores, weren't just pain; they were full-on infections, abscesses, the sizes of anything between a marble and sort of like golf ball size lumps that I was sitting on that then would get infected and would start bleeding, and it really was horrible for 5 years' time. But after the last record attempt, when I finally didn't have that big goal to work towards anymore, I said, okay, now it's time to properly address that. So I saw a gynecologist, and she recommended to have another operation done. So the operation in 2013 was on the right-hand side, and this time it was on the left-hand side to remove all the old scar tissue that had formed, remove the swelling, etc. Again, 5 weeks off the bike, 5 weeks total rest, which was really difficult because that was also immediately after the record attempt. So not only are you feeling bad about yourself, also you can't do anything. And, like most people you probably speak to on this podcast, we're people who like to be active and do challenges. And then when you suddenly just gotta, I don't know, I couldn't even do yoga because if I was like opening the legs, that couldn't, because the wound would stretch and couldn't sweat. It was really frustrating. But in the end, it healed beautifully. And I've also changed my diet a bit, changed my washing, my hygiene regime a bit, changed my position on the bike a bit, changed the type of bike that I'm riding. So multiple changes that have meant that I'm finally enjoying my riding without that kind of pain, which is beautiful.
Well, it is beautiful, And I was gonna, because there's so many, we can really get into detail, but I feel as though we actually need like a full episode.
Well, there is actually, I'm not sure if I can point it out to people, but I was a speaker at the London Bike Show in March this year, and there's a podcast that was done. There's a link to it on my blog as well. And that's an hour podcast or so with me, someone who designs chamois for women, someone who is a gynecologist or dermatologist, and another woman who owns a bike shop and runs out various saddles and things. So women talking about saddle sores from all different types of angles. And that's recorded. So if people want to know any detail, then that podcast might be a good starting point.
Brilliant. What's the name of the podcast?
Look it up. I think it's just called Saddle Sore on the Bike Show.
I will. What I will do is I'll make sure that I find that interview, and I will put the link on, because
if you go to the very bottom of my blog post, which is called Flipping Flat Mesh, at the very bottom of that there is this link to the podcast from the London Bike Show.
You know, I'm on that blog post. I was going to say,
the Wheel Suckers podcast.
Yes,
link.
The Wheel Suckers podcast link. So honestly, and also reading that blog post as well. I'm going to include the link to the Flipping Flat Mash as well, because it has to be, honestly, it's the most incredible blog post to read, because I feel as though women don't get to talk about this in enough detail, about what's going on, all the different stuff that you've been trying, because and do you know what's great? It is an explicit blog, but it's great. And actually, I think like, oh no, I want to say the word, like, I don't want to say it, like vulvas and vaginas. Oh my god, I said it. More power to me. But actually, huge level of importance. So I'm going to share all of those links, because I think it will definitely help other women out there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you've been up to in 2019, because I think you've had a fresh start this year in terms of your racing and what you're going to be doing and what you're focusing on. Do you just want to share more about like how you started 2019 and what the plans for the year were?
Yeah, 2019 has been so much fun. So the main plan for 2019 was to have fun. That was like the number one. Now, I know a lot of time trailers, their idea of fun is indeed to do time trial after time trial, and to travel around the country and to do all these races. But for me, that is no longer my idea of fun. I want different experiences. So the number one thing was to not do any time trials. In fact, I've even, after a little while, finally let go of my time trial bike even. It was becoming a very expensive turbo bike that was just sitting there. So I've sold it. I've sold all my wheels, my disc wheels, the funny helmets, the lot. Not in a bad way, not like, don't want anything to do with that anymore. It's just that after that horrible speed wobble, I'm just not feeling confident to ride really, really fast on dual carriageway roads anymore, chasing fast times. That's just not something I feel safe doing anymore. But of course, before I felt comfortable for a long time, so I don't want to talk bad about it. It's just not for me anymore. And I wanted to do something totally different. So for a number of years, I've been really lucky to have a lot of support. All the races that I've done, 12 hours, 24 hours and beyond, you can't do those on your own. You need people, really, really kind people, to stand by the side of the road and hold up bottles for you, help feed you, help get you there, because you're a wreck afterwards as well, help drive you back. And after all that support, I felt like I owe a lot to people and I want to give a lot back. But also in terms of my own challenges, I want to do things now where I can be unsupported. For two reasons. One, that I don't need to call on other people again and feel like, not uncomfortable, but always feel like I'm taking rather than giving. But also because I want to be independent. I want to see how I fare for myself. So I entered a 1,000-kilometer unsupported race in Oman in February, with the main goal of just to just to see how I would get on, if I could look after myself, if I could find my own food, my own drinks, how I would deal with sleep deprivation, if I could sleep by the side of the road instead of the luxury of a follow car. And Oman being, a totally, new country for me, exciting new place, and a bit of sunshine in February is nice too. And it also had a gravel element, which is something I've never done before either. I've always only cycled on the road. So a lot of new things. And it went really, really well. I was the fastest woman doing it, and again was in the top 10 overall. So that, new start off with a very good result. But more importantly, I really, really enjoyed it and really felt like, I've found something new here, because it combines a number of elements. It's not just about achievement, it's also about being autonomous, being able to do things for yourself, and about beautiful landscape that you really feel connected to. You see different things once you start going onto the gravel roads, and you're doing it as a personal challenge, but at the same time that there's other people doing the same race as well, of course, and it's a very different group of people, again, different types of cyclists that I'm getting to know now, and I enjoy it. They're people with a nice outlook on life, and a whole new world is opening up. So that's how the year started. The other thing that is about this year is I wanted to combine my cycling with seeing more of my family. So my dad is the only one who's still living in the Netherlands, but my mum lives in France and my sister lives in Dubai. So after the Oman race, I spent time with my sister in Dubai, which was really, really nice. And then in May this year, I did a race around the Netherlands. And before that, I got to spend some time with my dad. And then just last week, I did a big cycling event in France and got to spend some time with my mum. So we're three big events that combined the cycling with the family. The other thing that I've been doing in addition to these long events is addressing some of my weaknesses. So for years I've played to my strengths, and I thought, okay, it's time to learn some new skills. So I've been doing some very, very, very hilly events. I hate hills, absolutely. Well, that's a bit too strong. I actually love them now, but I used to hate hills. And always just stick to the flats, because that's what I was good at, just powering along against the wind forever. But as soon as the road went up, it felt like I was going backwards, and it just hurt. So I couldn't push myself up them. And I was also afraid of going down. But I have actually discovered that it makes total sense, but you got to experience it. As long as you pace yourself, hills are actually an awful lot of fun. And then if you bring the right bike, then descending can be incredibly fun and rewarding. And I haven't experienced any of those nasty speed wobbles anymore. I just feel really planted and in control when I'm going down. And the landscapes that I've been seeing on some of these hilly rides are absolutely amazing. So totally new range of activities, and there's more to come for next year.
Oh, fantastic. And I love it because actually it's having fun, it's spending time with your family, but also still being out there and riding fast and being the fastest woman. Like, do you feel as though you're more balanced now with your cycling and it's not the focus of everything in your life?
Yeah, I feel not quite sure how to express it. It's still a very important part of my life, but it's much more in balance with other things that I'm doing. And it's also in balance in terms of its importance and my emotional attachment to it. I can also now come to a point where I don't always have to be fast, or I don't always have to be first, or always have to chase a certain time, or it's seeing that different situations are perfectly fine, and some events you just do for the kick, just for the fun, just having a good time. Another event might be the ones where you push yourself and you want to get a result out of it. And that's something that I think, a couple of years ago, it was all about chasing the medals and the records and the times, and that was all that I was interested in. On top of that, this year, as alluded to earlier, it's about giving back as well. So I've joined, in addition to my local cycling club, Kingston Wheelers, which is a mixed club, I've joined a women's only club, Bella Velo. There's about 200 women of varying experience, varying abilities. A really nice bunch of women to cycle with, and I've been doing a number of sessions with them to pass on some of the skills that I've learned over the years and help them with their development, and that's been really, really rewarding and really good fun.
I think what would be interesting is probably a couple of years ago, I wonder how much of your identity was tied up in the records and the medals and the times that you were getting, and how much value that your sort of self-worth was placed on that, and being that person who was winning and getting the fastest times and breaking the records, and then suddenly not to have that anymore, and to almost go through that adjustment and realize that actually you're still valuable as a person, even by going through that failure or not getting the LEJOG, and sort of changing your outlook. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that very much makes sense. It is about, it's about input rather than output. It's about the intensity with which you do things, and you are not necessarily what you do. It's so easy to confuse these two things. You are so much more than Jasmijn the management consultant or Jasmijn the cyclist. There's a person beneath that with all the characteristics and the relationships that you have with people around you. That's what makes you at the end of the day, not necessarily the medals that hang on the wall, or the fact that your name is on the record.
Absolutely. Right, Jasmijn, we're going to mix things up now. I'm going to be asking you some quick fire questions. My questions may be quick, but your answers don't have to be quick. Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you a morning person or an evening person?
Morning, absolutely.
What time does your alarm go off?
Well, that's interesting. It used to go off around 5:30 when I was still working in central London, but I'm working from home nowadays, so quite often it doesn't go off until 8. I always thought I would be doing loads and loads of things in the morning, but I'm actually sleeping more.
That's a good thing. You are allowed to get lots of sleep in. It is allowed. You need that recovery time. Do you drink tea or coffee?
Both. I used to avoid coffee, but I have developed a little bit of a liking for particularly like coconut cortados, small coffees.
Why did you avoid coffee?
Well, so it would have the biggest impact on me, the caffeine, during the races.
Are you reading a book at the moment?
I am reading a book.
Which one are you reading?
Well, it's a book by Christoph Strasser, who has won the Race Across America a number of times. I'm reading it in German, however. It's called Der Weg ist weiter als das Ziel. And the reason I'm reading it is because I'm going to live in Germany.
Oh, when you move to Germany?
I'm going to move to Frankfurt in January.
Oh, that's very exciting.
Total change of life. I'm going to quit my job. We're going to rent out the house. My husband's headquarters of his work are based in Frankfurt, and they've been asking him for a number of years if we wanted to come over. A couple of years ago, we looked at it seriously, but particularly after Brexit. But I pulled the plug at the last minute because I actually still enjoyed my life and my work here too much, and also still wanted to go for the record attempt. And over time, actually, particularly this year, doing different challenges and different things, I realized that life is all about experiences, and if you have these opportunities, serendipity doesn't knock on your door every day. You've got to take them. I don't know how it's going to go. I have no idea what job I'm going to do. I find it incredibly difficult to let go of that, because for me, my job is about my independence, and I've got a job that I love a lot, but it's not one that I can continue from Frankfurt, unfortunately. So it will be a bit of a surge, but the opportunity to live somewhere different, to do different type of cycling. I'm going to get an off-road bike as well. I always said I don't like mud, but I actually went for a mountain bike ride the other day with a friend, and I'm going to go again in a couple of weeks. Quite interesting doing more off-road riding to start with, and then the kind of bike-packing races that take you off-road as well. Frankfurt has that on its doorstep with the towners. So yeah, who knows? Might be an opportunity to take a proper break, do a really long race that I would never be able to do otherwise, like the length of Europe or the width of Europe. It's all quite fluent and quite scary, but quite exciting at the same time.
Very exciting. Lots of opportunity. I'm so happy for you. That's going to be awesome. Would you ever think of doing something like the transcontinental race?
Yes and no. What floats my boat a bit more than that, it's a lot less high profile, but it intrigues me more, is a race from North Cape down to Tarifa. So it's the longest type of these unsupported races. It's like the transcontinental, but going north to south instead. The main difference is that it's a fixed route. So the organizer has put a lot of time and effort into making a route that is both scenic and safe, and all the participants have to follow the same route. Now that's a little bit less interesting, for people who are dot watching, because you don't get that element. But I think the time that you need to invest before you even do the TCR, I know from some of the previous winners, they spend like 100 hours just planning their routes. I don't have that time. I just don't have the time, or if I have it, I would like to do other things with that time. The fact that everyone follows the same route in a way also provides a level playing field, and it is still a 7,000 kilometer, I think, that race, with plenty of challenges in terms of terrain and climates and being unsupported and looking after yourself. I think that's a challenge that intrigues me more. Whether or not I have enough time to do it, it takes 3 weeks probably for the race, and then time to get there and get back. We'll see. But if not that one, then there are a number of sort of shorter types of races like the TCR that I might want to do.
Fantastic. What about a movie? Do you have a favourite movie or film you like to watch?
Well, I always say the Le Grand Bleu, Luc Besson. It's a movie that I fell in love with in my scuba diving days, and it's still. I think it's images like that. Whenever I feel stressed on the bike or I'm in a bit of a bad spot, I try to think of visual images that calm me down, that make me happy, and there are a lot of those in the Grand Bleu.
Oh. What about music? What type of music do you like to listen to? Do you have like a favourite song or a favourite genre?
No, I'm really boring when it comes to music. My husband's the music buff, so he's the one who always tells me, "Oh, you got to listen to this, or you got to listen to that." So I listen to whatever he listens to, which is quite eclectic. And then when I'm doing my indoor turbo training, it tends to be more like European trash, basically dance with a big beat behind it, just to to drone out the noise of the turbo and to keep me going. But yeah, that's not really music that I would listen to otherwise.
What about food? Do you have a favourite type of food that you like to eat in normal life? And then what's your favourite food when you're on the bike?
Oh, you can wake me up for spinach and egg any day. I really love spinach. On the bike, recently I discovered piadinas. They're my go-to food at the moment. They're quite easy to put in your back pocket. They don't have too much fiber. They're good to keep going on the bike and not have issues going to the toilet. But they're quite tasty. They have olive oil, a bit of fat, enough carbs. I find them quite a nice on-the-bike snack.
Do you have a favourite piece of gear or kit?
It's got to be my Wahoo, I think. Just to be able to put a route in it and follow it. I think that's been a big change in my cycling. Before I had a a cycling computer with navigation on it. I always was afraid what would happen if I would fall off the back of the group and didn't know my own way home. And the moment I got one, it just gave me so much opportunity to be independent, to do my own routes, to go wherever I want to. And that's still my favourite.
What's it called? A Wahoo?
Yeah, I used to have a Garmin, and now it's Wahoo is basically a competitor of Garmin. I think I've used like 5 Garmins over 5 years, and they've all died. So I've given up on the brand, and Wahoo's been amazing so far.
Ooh, that's really interesting. Never heard of them before, so thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I've had it for like 2.5 years now, and still going strong. So longer battery life and reliable. That's all I need.
Yeah. How many bikes do you have at the moment?
Not enough. I've only got an old commuter, an old road bike, and a beautiful titanium all-road bike, which is fantastic. So I only got 3 bikes at the moment, but I am working on buying a 4th bike, which will be a bike that can get me off-road and long distances too.
Do you name your bikes?
No. I don't have that kind of relationship with my bike. If I do refer to them, then it's generally just by the brand.
Got you. Are you more mountains or beach?
Ooh, difficult. I always say I want to live by the beach. That's unfortunately, it's not going to happen now because where we're going in Frankfurt, the sea is a long way away. We're going to live in the forest. But there's something about the smell of the beach. I love it. But now that I've discovered that hills are actually really good fun, now I'm quite intrigued about doing more cycling in the mountains, and the views are definitely inspiring.
What about rest and relaxation? What do you do to rest and relax?
Well, difficult. Not my favourite word at all, rest and relaxation. When I rest or relax, it's either still quite active, so doing something like yoga, which is a form of relaxation, but not totally. I do like to read books when I have the time, but then I tend to just read the book from first page to last page in one go. We don't watch TV much, but when we do, it's something like a Netflix series or something, which is highly dangerous, and just devour the whole lot in one go. Yeah, things like that. Either an activity that is slightly less active than cycling or reading.
What was the last Netflix series that you binge watched?
Oh, Killing Eve.
I thought it was going to be that.
Yes. We finished it on the boat coming back from France for the last episode.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, 2 more questions. Do you have a mantra or a quote or words that you live your life by?
Yeah, well, I thought about this. During the record attempt, I used the BDX quote, and it's helped me quite a lot. But not using it so much anymore nowadays. Also because it's a chapter in my life that I've closed off, and that mantra was very much tied to that. My recent, both of my challenges and in life generally, it's actually 2 phrases, and it's really, really simple. It's either let go or let's go. So whenever, I've got to do something really difficult, I tell myself, let's go, go and attack it, let's do it. And when I'm going through periods where it's all a bit difficult and everything hurts, it's just literally telling myself, let go, even actively saying that. And breathing the pain away, letting it go, and it goes away. So let go and let's go.
Jasmijn, you've been absolutely fantastic, and it's been amazing to talk to you about your life. And I'd just love for you to leave some final words of wisdom, or just share. What would you like our listeners to hear from you? What do you think you've learned over the past couple of years throughout your cycling, throughout the challenges that you faced, through the journey that you've been on?
I think I've learned to see the colours. Being someone who didn't grow up with sports or doing anything competitive, because I only came to that later in life, it often has been quite black or white for me. And through both the success I've had and the disappointments that I've had, I've really started to see the colours and to understand that there's so much more in between in terms of outcomes and also what I do. So yeah, seek the experience, seek the colours, and your life will be richer for it.
Absolutely. And Jasmijn, where can people find more information out about you?
They can find it on my blog, Duracell Bunny on a Bike, although I have been a little bit lazy with blogging. I've got one, I should publish it hopefully later this week, but that's the main one. And then I'm on Twitter as well, Jasmijn Muller 1, I think, and Instagram and Facebook, Jasmijn Muller.
Fantastic. Jasmijn, honestly, it's been amazing to connect with you, and thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast to share more about your journey and provide so many top tips and advice. And I hope you continue your year of fun, and best of luck in January 2020 with this new experience of moving to another country. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
Hey tribe, I hope you're well. I cannot believe that it is coming to the end of 2019. I do not know where this year has gone. It is absolutely flown by. I hope you've really enjoyed lots of the Tough Girl extra episodes that have been coming out. And if you're a new listener to the Tough Girl podcast, thank you so much for hopefully subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the episodes. So normal episodes come out on a Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time. And then we also do something called Tough Girl Extra, which is when we go back and catch up with previous guests to see what they've been up to in the interim from when we last spoke with them. And those episodes come out on a Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time. So Tough Girl podcast episodes come out on Tuesday and Thursday every single week. There's new blog posts which come out on a Friday. If you haven't already, then please do go subscribe to the Tough Girl Challenges Facebook page where you'll get the regular updates. You can come and follow along with me on Instagram at Tough Girl Challenges. I also have a YouTube channel where you can see more or find out more about the different challenges that I've done and watch the vlogs from the Appalachian Trail, from the Camino. So there's lots of great content out there. Thank you again for listening. Thank you for supporting. I hope it's encouraged you to have a little think about what your next challenge is going to be, what your next adventure is going to be. If you are looking for more inspiration, please do go check out toughgirlchallenges.com. That is the main website. That's the main hub. That's where you can find all of the information that you need to find out about myself, about Tough Girl Challenges, about all of the different women that we have on the show. It also gives you links to the show notes so you can find out, everything that we've talked about today. So the links to the blog post that Jasmijn discussed, the link to the podcast that she mentioned, it'll all be in the show notes. So please do go visit toughgirlchallenges.com. All that's left for me to say is thank you so much again for listening. Have an amazing day wherever you are, whatever you are doing. Give it 110%. Give it your all. Go for it. Life is too short and you've got to live your life to the fullest. That dream, that thing you've wanted to do, now is the time to take that first step. Now is the time to do it. Don't wait. Don't delay. Get on it and do it today. All right. Take care. Lots of love. And I'll be back with you next Tuesday for another awesome episode of the Tough Girl podcast.